Hello, everyone, and welcome back to EF Live. My name is Jake Davis, your host each and every single week, and I hope that you are all looking forward to the show. We've got a fantastic topic. It's something that we've kind of touched on quite a few times in the last few months of doing this show, but we've kind of touched on some of the risks about doing this. And so today we're going to be talking about the rewards of using a PBN, and we have a fantastic guest. Very excited to introduce him in just a minute. But before I do, I just want to mention to all of you, thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, like our Facebook page, and subscribe to our email us if you're watching on empireflippers.com/live. Welcome to the show. So I guess now it's time to bring on Daryl Rosser. Let's get him on in here. So let's see here. Daryl, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. How about you? Thank you for having me, by the way.
No, man, I gotta thank you for taking the time to be on here with me today. So, thank you for taking the time to be here. I know it's getting a little late here in Vietnam. I actually, interestingly enough, Daryl and I met in person the other day, which is pretty crazy considering that typically this has just been a worldwide internet thing that we've been doing here. But Daryl.
We're actually in the same city.
Yeah. We're both in Ho Chi Minh, Saigon, Vietnam. So yeah. Speaking of that, where is everyone else coming at us from? As we said, Daryl and I are both coming at you from Vietnam. But where's everyone in the audience coming at us from? Let us know. You can type in YouTube chat and Facebook chat and let us know where we're at. If you, I know Daryl shared the link. If you know him, call him out, tell him how awesome he's looking today, and we're happy to have him here. So, Daryl, before we get going, why don't you just kind of introduce yourself a little bit and tell everyone who you are and why are you an expert in PBNs?
Sure, man. So obviously my name is Daryl Rosser. I'm an English guy living in Saigon, Vietnam, we just mentioned. And I've been doing this SEO stuff, PBN, since I think it was around early 2013. And I got started this kind of accidentally because some client came to me and wanted to do this SEO thing. And frankly, at the time, I was completely broke. And it was like, okay, this guy's got some money, he wants to invest in SEO. Why don't I just try this thing out? So I took this guy's money and bought a course the very next day. And it just so happened that course taught PBNs, private blog networks. So that's back in 2013. Since then, I've been scaling it up. I got to the point where I was able to earn enough money from the clients and stuff like that I could go and travel. And I've lived in Thailand. I live in Vietnam. Traveled all over Asia a lot. And yeah, in the time I've done that, I've also built up the Lion Zeal group, which I think most people know me for, which is a Facebook group and community and everything like that, where I teach cool SEO strategies. I've got probably one of the, I'm biased, but probably the best PBN guide you can find on the web for how to build up and set up and manage private blog networks. And then our Facebook group now is built up to over nearly 20,000 members, or I think 19,000. I've spoken on stage at the Chiang Mai SEO conference where 500 people. I've been featured on Ahrefs and Search Engine Journal, and I'm not very good at bragging. I just brag a lot. I don't like bragging; it makes me uncomfortable. But yeah, I've been around the community, I guess, for quite a while now.
It's like he's saying, he has a big history and a lot of experience, and I'm very excited to hear from you about really why you feel that PBNs are worth using, because a lot of times when I've talked to people about PBNs, you hear the risks. So I'm really excited to talk about the rewards. Before we dive into it though, I asked the question, let's see where everyone's coming at us from. So Tyler Sullivan from Vermont, I've never, that's one of those northeastern U.S. states where, I can't remember exactly the exact location, but I'm going to be moving to upstate New York pretty shortly. I don't know how, I'll be doing that in August. I don't know how close or not close it is to that, but welcome to the show. Now, Super Fly Dude also coming at us from the UK, Daryl's homeland here, and Satyam from India, Howard from Florida. I actually some of you know, if you've been watching this show a while, I've been living in Florida now for quite a while, Orlando for the last 4 years, so big fan of Florida. Vietnamese audience here, well, Vietnamese host. Is that the right thing to say, Daryl? We're Vietnamese hosting today?
We're in Vietnam,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
I don't know.
Green, you guys are handsome as usual. Thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah, I
much.
appreciate that. I like your comment very much, Green. And then we got Texas and Arkansas. So welcome everyone from all over the world. We're excited to have you hanging out with us today, and we've got a very very good show for you today. So speaking of that, let's kind of dive into this. And the first thing that we need to touch on here is what exactly, to get the rewards of using a PBN, we need to first define what is a PBN. Daryl?
Okay, sure. So I have like the proper description, and I'll explain afterwards what it actually means. But basically, it's a network. So PBN stands for Private Block Network, okay? And it's essentially a network of websites, aka a collective group of websites that you use to basically artificially increase the number of links that your website has. And the reason being is that links are essentially the biggest ranking factor in Google today. There's other things that matter a lot, so you can't just build links like in the old days and rank off of that. But essentially what it is you go out there and you build up a bunch of different websites. And these websites look like standalone websites that are owned by separate people, and then you use them to build links to your own website so you can increase the number of links you have, which again is basically going to rank your site. There's a lot more to it than that, but as like a basic introduction, it's just a network of sites you use to link to your own to increase the number of links it has to help you rank. That's trying to make it nice and basic so anyone that's never heard of it before kind of understands it.
And the reason you want to do that, correct me if I'm wrong, is because linking to your site is a very, very powerful way to rank high on Google.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably the most important thing.
So I guess that leads me to my next question here. Do they work?
Yeah. I can't expand that much more than that, but yeah, like, of course.
So something you hear is that there's risk involved. So I know we're going to touch on this a lot more later, but what's, just your first stab at the risk question?
I mean, most of it is kind of out of whack. So there's people that have had issues with their networks getting de-indexed and things like that. But in most cases, it's down to not doing it correctly versus they're blaming the strategy when it's actually their implementation of the strategy that's the problem.
And so I guess my question there is, if it's the implementation, there's obviously a proper way to do it and an improper way to do it, but it's against Google's terms of service, correct?
Yeah.
So how have you learned to really navigate? What was your when did you come up with the idea to try to develop your skill sets in using a PBN?
Well, as an intro, I mentioned right when I got that first client, I was like, I learned about PBNs and I started building it. And back then, I wasn't particularly good at it. I just went for courses, like just set them up, basic WordPress sites, and like they were kind of crappy to be honest. But that was good enough back then. It's only over years it's got more and more strict, and it has to be like better quality. But to be honest, the process hasn't drastically changed that much. It's all just been about making it look more like a real site, and that's what it's all about. Like people talk about footprint elimination. We can talk more about it later, but essentially it's building up these sites so they're actual real little mini sites that you own that you use for linking to your site. So when you put in a little more effort and actually build it as a real site, then there's very little risk. There is always the potential risk, you say, it's against Google's guidelines, but then pretty much anything with your intention of ranking is, if you go out there and purchase sponsored posts and stuff like that, that's generally said as okay, but it's still not allowed if you actually think about it properly.
So, you said you got to do it safely. What's the first step for building a safe PBN?
Oh, first up, we can start with like the absolute basics, which is the biggest mistakes people. I don't know if people still make the mistake so much these days, but in the past, the really, really big mistake people would make was to go to some like cheap SEO hosting company, or we kind of evolved past that maybe a few years ago, and a lot of people went to like these hosting plans that were like $1 a month, $2 a month, $3 a month. And the problem with what these were is that if you actually reverse engineered the hosts, almost every single site on it was a PBN, or like worse, some like really, really dodgy site that you really don't want to be associated with. And that was just like super easy for Google just to look through all those sites and just like sweep and get rid of all of them, because every single one of them was dodgy, and you don't really want to be indexing it. So like the first things first is like we can talk way more, but it's still like if some people are still using SEO hosts, there's a couple that are okay, and I wouldn't call them SEO hosts. What they do is they go to other companies. So if you want to get your hosting right, you want to go to companies that people would naturally purchase hosting from. So again, I wouldn't recommend these for important sites, but for like PBN sites, you could go to like HostGator and Bluehost and Green Geeks and SiteGround and stuff like that, and use the sort of sites that the average small business owner is going to go purchase hosting from. They're not necessarily good, but it's where the average business owner is going to go to purchase hosting. So the reason you want to buy from these is because you're kind of hiding in plain sight, so to speak. So you're not going on this site, which is on this hosting plan, which is full of PBNs and full of, I don't know, dodgy sites of some kind. You're going to these ones, which is actually full of like small business owners and small bloggers and stuff like that. So you're hiding in between all these legit sites. So that's like the main thing you want to do. And there's some SEO hosts, I'm not talking bad about these guys, that they go out there and they buy all these shared hosting plans. So rather than you paying maybe $10, $11 per month, give or take on the average per host, they go out there and buy all of them, but then they stick your website on it and you pay them, say, $2 or $3 a month. That's fine, but the ones that are going out there and buying servers and stuff like that, aka the ones that advertise themselves as SEO hosts, you want to avoid them at all costs, and then also avoid like the really crappy like $2 a month, $3 a month ones, because it's just gonna be like full of PBN sites.
And so another thing you mentioned is make them look like real sites. So,
Yeah,
what, I guess first we need to define what a real site is, right? So when you say
sure.
real site, what's a real site to you?
Well, I think the easiest way to start is to define what is a obvious PBN site, right? So it's easier to understand it that way. So if you go on a site and you build up your PBN, you go on the site and you look at it, and you can tell within 10 seconds of the PBN, then it's not a good site, right? And the ways you'll usually tell is it's going to be like the sidebar is going to be empty. The navigation menu is going to have like 2 or 3 pages. It's going to be like home, about, contact, something like that. Then the blog posts are just going to be really like thin, so like 300 words, lack of media or anything like that. And it's going to be like maybe 5 blog posts on the whole site. It's going to have like, if it has a logo, it's going to be super basic, but it probably doesn't even have one. And the whole site is just going to look like someone set it up in about 5 minutes. And if that's what your site looks like, then it's a very obvious PBN, and it's not gonna be that safe and that long term, right? So the opposite of that is, what does any real website look like? And if you go on a blog, or you go on a small local business website, anything like that, that's essentially what you're going to try and replicate. So for some of them, we go out there and build it as a local business. So you go on it and it looks like a local business. It has contact forms to contact them. It has information about their services. It has home pages, has FAQ pages, all that sort of stuff. It looks like a real local business site. Other ones could be like a blog, but rather than just having it really thin like that, we add a few different pages. There are a few different options in the navigation bar. We've got in the sidebar, we'll have like a stock photo of an author and stuff like that, and a little description and a little bio about them. And essentially, it just looks like a real site. If you go on it, like you could probably figure out if you're into SEO, because you can look through it and you can see the links and everything like that. It's not impossible to tell, but to a quick inspection, just quickly looking at it, it doesn't give away any like red flags that it's a PBN site. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. You mentioned that if it's someone who has experience with SEO, then they're going to be able to tell. So I
Yeah.
guess that makes me think Google, since it's against their terms of service, and they're the ones you're trying to fool. They probably have people trained to spot this stuff. So, I mean, have you ever run into any issues personally?
I mean, I've had sites de-indexed in the past. not so much these days. So that happens, but that's PBN sites, it's not money sites. I've never really had issues with my money sites. Even when I've had like PBN sites here, it's never actually directly gone. I want to say money site, by the way, I'm referring to the site that
Mm-hmm.
actually you make money from, the site you pointed to, in case that's not clear. So like, yeah, some PBN sites have been taken down in the past, but it's never really caused any issue with the site that actually matters, which is a site that's making money, which is a site we're actually linking it to. But also like you can tell, but depending on how good you do it, it's gonna be very difficult to know 100% for sure. Like you can kind of guess, you can look at it and go, okay, like they're linking to like a bunch of different sites, but depending on how it's done, it can be very difficult to tell. And if you just link it to like, depending on how you do it, right? So with a PBN, you want, in most cases, you want your links to be on the homepage, and we can talk more about that later. But in most cases, you want the links to be on the homepage. So if you're linking to 10 different websites, it becomes very clear that it's a PBN. Even if you set up really, really well, you can still kind of tell because there's 10 links on the homepage. It's not super common depending on how you fit in those links and depending on anchor text and different things like that. But if you're just linking to like one website or two websites, it can be pretty much impossible to tell because if they're placed in the right way, because like what website that has lots of content now doesn't have at least a couple of links.
On the slides that we threw up and the viewers saw, it mentioned that you don't want that you do want to cluster. So let me pull it up. So right here it says cluster your networks. So what exactly does that mean to you?
Okay, for like in terms of building like a safety like backup feature, so to speak. So I started teaching this like back in 2013, 2014, quite a while ago. And essentially what it is you could say your network is just one big collection of all your PBN sites. Okay, so that could be in many cases over 1,000, in some people's cases, most people's cases maybe 50, 100, something like that. And even though I don't believe it's that risky, especially for your money sites, like there is still an inherent risk that like one of your sites could get taken down, and that could affect the other ones because they're linked. Even if you do a really really good job of it, they are linked in the terms of the websites they link to is a way of reverse engineering through that anyway. So one way of kind of alleviating the risk as much as you can is to kind of create separate clusters of your network, meaning that rather than just having this one big network of all 100 sites, you separate it into batches of say 25 sites, and each of those clusters, I call it, those batches is a cluster, right? And basically what you do is you never link, so cluster one will be the first 25 sites. You link that to say site A and site B, but none of the other clusters will ever link to site A and B. They link to site C and D and E and F or whatever, right? But you never link to those sites. So what happens is, even if this first cluster of 25 sites happens to get manually reviewed or something like that, and found by Google and say de-indexed and basically like yeah de-indexed, right? Then that's not going to transfer over to the second cluster or the third cluster or the fourth cluster because it's completely independent. There's absolutely nothing that relates to these sites to those sites. So it's just removing that risk when you're doing this at scale, that you're not going to suddenly lose like 100 sites, which again never really happened anyway to me. But it just massively reduces that risk.
And how does one test their domains?
Okay, so yes, another really good point. You definitely want to be testing. So in terms of building safe PBNs today, you definitely want to be testing them. And what that means is you want to know certainly that it's going to, you want to know like with 100% certainty that it's going to work before you start pointing it at your money sites. Because one of the worst things that can happen, and you really don't want this to happen to you, right, is where you basically go out there and you build a link to your money site and then the rankings drop. Now that can happen naturally because of just things can be kind of random sometimes. So it can drop a little bit and then come back up again. But some actual links can actually be kind of toxic. And what's going to happen is your rankings will drop, then they'll just progressively keep dropping. And it's actually a negative link versus a link that's having a positive impact. So what you want to do in that case is, well, before that case, to be honest, is you want to test them out before you start pointing them to your money sites to double check that they're actually safe PBNs, actually safe domains, so to speak. So the way of doing that is very, very simple. I think my friend Matt Diggity, has a good guide on it on his blog, and we have some in our premium training courses. But basically, the way of doing it is you go out there and find another website that's a good candidate. So someone that's not ranking on the first page of Google, that has a site that doesn't have sort of exact match anchor text and stuff like that. And then you go ahead and basically the simple way of doing it is you just point a link to someone else's website and you measure the rankings over maybe a 4-week period or so, and you see what movement they have. And if their rankings go up and they stay up, then that's great. If they kind of drop, then keep watching, and then if it goes back up again, that's fine. But if it drops and just keeps dropping, then it's negative. And essentially, you just test it on someone else's website before using it on your own, and no real negative effects are going to happen anyway. You're going to remove the link once you're done anyway, which it might negatively impact someone else's website for like 6 months or so, but you're not doing it on like a big keyword or anything like that. You're just testing it on some random page that's not really ranking that well anyway. So if you're already on the second or third or fourth page, it doesn't particularly matter. You're not damaging their business. I want to clarify that before. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're making it sound like you're just going around sabotaging other people's websites.
I know. I was like, I really need to make it clear. Yeah. No, they're not ranking already, so it's not like they're losing anything.
So that's how you decide what sites you want to test on. You try to find sites that aren't ranking anyway.
Yeah, and then somewhat relevant to the topic of your site.
Okay. And then we've already touched on designing them to look like real websites. But what is a dumb footprint, and how can someone try to eliminate them?
Okay, so there's so many. There's really a lot. Okay. But let's just think of a few basic ones off the top of my head. Okay, obvious ones like who is information. People like sign up for all these domains, and then they have the same owner as the owner of every single domain. So you look at the who is information, you can see the same person owns them all. Very obvious way to pull down a network and know that they're all owned by you, right? And the idea behind doing a PBN correctly is that every single site looks like it's individually set up by different people. Okay, they're individually owned by different people. So who is information? We mentioned hosting before. So obviously using really bad hosts in bad neighborhoods is going to give you a bad experience and probably going to result in your sites being de-indexed. But on top of that, it's also just, even if you use better hosts, like, I don't know, better hosts, not particularly good, but a safer hosts, like HostGator and Bluehost, different things like that, DreamHost, then make sure that every single site is on a separate host within a single cluster. So there's another benefit of the clustering thing is that if you're only batching them, say, a cluster of 25 sites and 25 sites and 25 sites, that means you only need 25 hosting accounts. Whereas if you built it where every single site was part of this one big network and all use the same sites, you need, in a network of 100 sites, you need 100 different hosting plans. And if you say the average host is like $10 a month, that adds up very, very quickly. Whereas if you have a cluster of 25, then it still adds up a bit, but you only need 25 different hosting accounts. So that's another benefit of the clustering. But basically, with dumb footprints, it's just anything that can kind of show that the sites are owned by the same person. So installing Google Analytics, I don't think anyone actually does that, but it's a very obvious footprint. Using the same username on all your sites. You can use like admin as the username on all the sites, that's fine, and probably mix it up, but that sort of thing is a giveaway. Any sort of plugins that are the same every single time is a giveaway. Same themes every single time is a giveaway. I'm trying to think of like really dumb stuff off the top of my head, but that's like the essentials. Like basically, when you're setting up the sites, you want to make sure every single one of them looks completely independent. So we set up site A, and we're going to have a completely random theme on that. We're going to have a different like plugin set up, so a group of plugins, and the layout and the content, everything's going to look one way. Then the next site's going to look completely different theme, different group of plugins, everything like that. So every single time we set it up, it has to look different. Now there is some sort of overlap. So in the way I do it, we have like a huge list of plugins that are acceptable to use, and then we could just insert a few of them. So sometimes like site A and site F might have a plugin the same, but it's not like a completely identical match of plugins. It's not exactly the same theme and exactly the same 5 plugins. And basically that's all it is. It's just making sure that you remove any sort of really, really dumb footprints that are just make it very obvious. If you just pull up 2 sites, if it's obvious that they're owned by the same person, then you're screwed. And that's essentially what I meant by just like eliminating like dumb footprints and stuff like that.
everyone watching, if you do have any questions about anything we're discussing today, definitely get them into the chats. We want to help you. We want to answer as many questions as we can, and we will be doing a full Q&A at the end. But speaking of Q&A, I do have a couple questions of my own. So my first question here, Daryl, is, what is the number of sites that is too many for a person to have before they'll start to get flagged? Is two sites? Is it, what if you're just a guy who has two sites and they're kind of similar and you want to like reference one on the other? Are you going to get flagged?
So it doesn't really matter. Okay, you
Mm-hmm.
like the thing with PBNs is we don't want them to be obvious to the same owner. If you're actually building them up and you don't care, like you can have as many websites as you want, and if you're telling people you're the owner, that's fine. But if you're using them as a PBN, then it becomes an issue when there's volume. And I don't like basically with PBN, the idea is every single site looks individual. So if you're it's your own sites and you're like, hey, these are my own sites, and you link in between your sites, that's fine. But you're never going to get that much benefit out of it versus going out there and building a deliberate PBN to rank. So I mean, did I answer the question? Um,
Kind of.
like if it's your own sites, it's fine. But if you're going out there and building like
Mm-hmm.
PBN, you don't want it to be similar in any way. You don't want it to look like they're owned by the same person. Um, and like if you link a couple of them accidentally, like maybe they have like the same theme or something like that, that's not really a big deal. But if it becomes obvious that you got different sites with the same who is information or something like that, like a very obvious footprint and you own them, then like maybe you just had a couple of sites, you probably get away with it. It's not gonna be an issue. But if that started like, if suddenly you had, I can't put an exact number on it because like I don't really know
Yeah.
to be honest. But yeah, if you suddenly you had like 10 different sites and all your links from this on this site are all from this network of 10 sites that are obviously very obviously owned by you and the same who is information, then you're probably going to have an issue if it's ever noticed by
Mm-hmm.
anyone.
So now that we've established how to build a safe PBN, the next thing we want to do is we want to see results. So what are the things to look out for when trying to build a powerful PBN?
Okay. So like there's a ton, so we'll go through what we can. I guess start with the absolute basics, right? So when building a PBN, the essential thing really is the domain that you're building it on, right? So if you just went out and bought a brand new domain right now and set it up as a cool looking site and use that as a PBN, it's not really going to have much power behind it. It could help in cases maybe it's relevant or something like that, but it's never really going to be that beneficial, right? So when you're setting up a PBN, the reason you're doing it is because you're essentially buying link juice, right? So link juice is just a measurement of the how effective the link's going to be. That's a very simple way of putting it, right? So you could go out there and you could do guest posting, you could buy sponsored posts, something like that. You can go pay people or naturally, organically, if you want to put it that way, go out there and acquire, say, 10 links. And that works fine. But with a PBN, you're going out there and buying a domain that already has 30, 40, 100 links. Doesn't really matter, right? Usually 30 plus. And you're going out there and buying a domain that already has those links. So you need to be able to buy essentially good domains. And usually the way people are doing it these days, you can like scrape and stuff in the past. So scraping would be where you just go to like old web pages and stuff like that. And you just find really old domains that have links to them that kind of dropped. And that was the way people used to do it. And I think people still do it outside of like the US. So maybe in the UK, maybe New Zealand, other countries like that. You can still get some domains like that. But most people these days are going to do it through auction domains. And they can get a little bit pricey. Like I think backorder domains like start at like $50, maybe less, depending on the country. And in some cases, people are spending hundreds, even $1,000 plus per domain. But usually, what I'm doing these days is we're going to like auction sites. So we're going to like Snap Names, Namejet, and the sites like that. And we're going out there and we're paying $100, $200, $300, maybe a little bit more sometimes, and buying up domains that have a decent number of links and decent quality of links. And then basically that's the idea behind a PBN was shortcut. Rather than going out there and manually building 50, 100, 200 links, we've just bought a domain for $300 that already has all them. So that's gonna be like first been like buy good domains. Okay, so don't go buy like people like sell really crappy domains sometimes. It's like, yeah, this has got like one good link. And the problem with one good link is if that link ever gets removed, then your whole power behind your PBN domain has gone. So make sure you're buying them with a decent number. Like we're going for like at least 30 plus on the referring domains on the low end. So referring domains means in a different number of websites that link to it, not necessarily links. So if you have 5 links on one site, that's 5 backlinks. But that's only one referring domain. So I want at least 30 referring domains. And yeah, just make sure you're buying good domains is like the first most important thing, because that's ultimately the power behind those sites.
What are some of the things to look out for when looking at the backlinks when buying domains?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so there's so much. Okay, so first up, if you use a tool like Ahrefs or something like that, they're going to have things like domain rating, and Majestic has like trust flow and citation flow. Majestic has a domain authority and page authority, things like that. They're indicators, okay? So look at them for sure, but they're nothing more than indicators. So you can have a quick look at them, and if it's a high number, then it's good. And if it's a low number, then it's probably an issue, okay? But it's nothing more than an indicator to tell you whether or not you want to look more into it, okay? So what you want to actually do is look at the actual backlinks that domain has, and what you're looking for is quality links. And the easy way of summarizing what is a good link versus a bad link, what's a quality link versus a low quality link, is how easily it can be replicated. I mean, that's the easiest way of summing it up. So if it's a link from Yelp.com or some sort of citation or directory site, can that easily be replicated? The answer is yes. It's very, very easy to go out there and sign up on that site and create another link exactly the same as that one. Whereas if they have a link from, say, bbc.co.uk, when there was some news article and they referenced it as a relevant website to that news piece, can you very easily go out there and replicate that link? Like, it's possible, but it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world, right? So the harder it is to achieve that link, the higher quality is essentially. Now, there's other factors as well. So that BBC link may be on some super deep-rooted page that has like no links to or anything like that. It still has some benefit, but not that much. Versus a page that has tons and tons of links going to it. So it's actually super powerful in its own right. But the easiest way to kind of sum it up is how easy it is to replicate that link. And ideally, you want a decent number of referring domains that are not easy to replicate. So if you look at the backlink profile, and you'll see in that, like, okay, Daryl says 30 plus referring domains. That's good. It's got 32, for example. And then you look at the actual ones, and it's got one that seems pretty good, maybe 2 or 3 that seem like kind of good from like blog posts. They're kind of hard to replicate. Someone's actually naturally linked to them. But then you look at the rest of them, it's like 27 more. And every single one of them is from a directory page or a blog comment or something like that. Then they're very easily replicated links, so practically zero value to them. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Basically, if it can be replicated easy, it's low quality. If it can't be replicated easy, it's a good link. And ideally, you want to aim for like 30 plus referring domains and as more good quality links as you possibly can than the low quality ones, because they're basically little value to them.
And how do you, go about doing your own research to figure out if these links are powerful or not?
Ahrefs. So huge fan. I already mentioned them before, but yeah, basically you just throw them into Ahrefs and look through the backlinks that they have and just look at the sites. And I mean, for me these days, I don't even have to click. I don't even check them anymore. I've people doing this stuff for me. I'm not actually doing this. But usually you can just look at the actual backlinks and you can see, okay, within a second, like that looks like a blog comment because like a no follow link on a blog post. So you can very quickly tell, oh, that's a directory, because you can recognize like the URL or something like that. But even if like you can't do that quick, basically just open the list in Ahrefs and just click onto each of them and just double check what the link is, and you can figure out very quickly, is it easy to replicate or is it not? Like, is it a blog comment? Okay, if it's a blog comment, that's very easy to replicate. Is it a directory link? Is it some sort of, I don't know, forum link, anything like that? They're all very, very easily replicated. Versus if you're looking at, okay, this is a link from within a blog post that someone's posted. And if you want to, you can take that step further. You can have a look at the number of links that that blog post has to it, or that domain that the blog post is on has to it, and that's going to give you an indicator as
Mm-hmm.
well.
And why does someone want to try to get traffic going to their PBN site first?
Okay, so a lot of people were talking about filters. So filters essentially means that the links on the PBNs aren't really having that much impact. It's been filtered out and they're not really having any impact. And in our test cases, almost all of those filters could be bypassed just by having traffic on the PBN site. That's the reason we want to have it, because essentially it makes the links work really, like, basically every single time we tested it. If we put traffic on them, they work really, really well. Aside from that, it actually also makes them tend to, it's hard to test that sort of thing, but it tends to make them more effective, more powerful links. Okay, so that's why we want to get traffic. And in terms of how to do it, it really depends on how you want to do it. Okay, so the easiest way of doing it is when you're creating content to rank for super long tail keywords. And when I say long tail keywords, um, I need an example on the spot. Like rather than trying to rank for the keyword like how to lose weight, you want to rank for how to lose weight for, I don't know, post pregnancy, um, after the age of 45, something like that. I'm making that up on the spot. No idea.
Very, very
But
specific keywords.
yeah, exactly. Very, very specific, because very few people are going to attempt to rank for these terms. So it's very, very easy to just create a blog post about it essentially and start ranking for that. And you can do that with all the content on your PBN. So that's a very, very easy way. And you can start getting some basic rankings, a little drip of traffic on the site, which is going to help a little bit. Other ways of doing it would be going out to Q&A sites, maybe. How do you pronounce that site? Quora? Quora? I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know how to pronounce it. But like different Q&A sites like that, you can go on like
Mm-hmm.
Reddit and stuff like that. And if you want to, we're not really doing this, but you can also do that as well. You can go like the paid traffic route and just get like super cheap clicks targeting like Vietnam and countries like that on like Facebook ads, stuff like that, and just get some cheap clicks that way. But when we're mostly doing like the long tail rankings and then Q&A sites like Quora, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, Reddit and stuff like that. So just going on these sites and like answering some questions and stuff like that, and including a link, a reference to our site, to our PBN sites, which is a little bit of work, but that's going to get a nice drip of traffic on them before you start sending out links and everything from it.
And yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. And for the record, I think you are pronouncing that correctly.
Okay,
So when
thank
we
you.
talk about why you want to update the content, is that purely so that the site does look, like a real site?
Pretty
Mm-hmm.
much, yeah. The old way of doing it was you just set up the site, you'd add some links, and you'd never touch it again. And you'd have sites that be sitting there for like 2, 3 years, something like that haven't been updated. So yeah, you just want to make sure that there's some sort of basic updates happening. Add a new blog post, edit some old content, things like that. Just make sure you're constantly doing little updates like that. Even just editing some content somewhere on the site. But yeah, at least like once or twice a month, once every couple of weeks, just go and update the site a little bit to keep it kind of
Mm-hmm.
fresh.
So when talking about ranking with PBNs, so I think the big thing here that you're going to see right up here is that diversification. So why do you need diversification if you have these powerful PBN links?
I mean, the way I do it is I've been describing it this way for years. So PBN links are essentially the power behind your rankings, and then everything else is kind of like a safety net, which kind of diversifies it. So the reason you need that is just because like that you can't really rank with just PBNs, to be honest. Not anymore. Like you need other stuff. I was gonna say you probably could get away with it, but I mean you really need other things. So you need to have social profiles set up for the site. Like what sort of business doesn't have, what sort of website doesn't have a Facebook profile or a Twitter profile, stuff like that. Even if you don't use them, you at least register them. So it's very unnatural if you don't have them. And what sort of business has or website has other websites linked to it, but has zero people ever talked about it, ever shared it, ever liked it on Facebook or Pinterest or Instagram or whatever, right? So these things are essential because it's just natural, right? You don't have a website that doesn't have social profile, you don't have a website that has traffic on it, that has links pointing to it, that doesn't have likes or shares or anything on Facebook. So you want to build those things just because like required basically because every real website has those fins. Whereas there's other types of links as well, like say outreach links. And outreach links is like a very open term. It basically just means any sort of link that you acquire by reaching out to other websites and asking them to link to
Mm-hmm.
you. So that could be a resource link and saying like, hey, like link to our resource as well. It could be a sponsored post and asking them like, hey, we'll give you $30 if you write a guest post for us. If you can, let us write a guest post for you and link to your site. It could be a guest post. It could be anything like that, right? Outreach links. And basically you want to just build them up because it's more natural. So with a PBN, I mentioned previously that you want all your links to be on the homepage. And the reason for that is that in most cases, when you're buying a domain, most of the links it has is going to be to the homepage of that domain. So that's going to be the most powerful page on that whole website, on that whole PBN site. So when you're linking out from it, you want it to be on the homepage. So one issue with this, so it's not really an issue, it's a great thing, but one issue with this when you're doing this at scale is that if you have, say, 20, 30, 40, even 50 links or more, and every single one of them is from the homepage of a blog or a homepage of a website pointing to your website, it's very, very unnatural. So you can get links from the homepage of other sites, but it's not a super common occurrence. In most cases, you have a look at any real website, and when I say real website, I mean a website that doesn't artificially increase its links through PBNs or anything like that. They're going to be from inner pages. So it could be from a blog post. It could be from some sort of page on the site, right? It's not going to be from the homepage. So it's a good thing that you can get links from the homepage because they're more powerful, but as you're starting to build up volume in the number of links you're building, you don't want all of them to be like that because it becomes very, very obvious that you're using PBN. So you want to build some like outreach links or some other types of links that basically diversify that to kind of hide that footprint that you've got so many homepage links. And aside from that, we can talk a bit more about anchors soon, but basically just mixing up the anchor text and stuff like that as well. You can use your outreach links for other types of anchor texts.
Mm-hmm. And I think now is a good time to talk about it. So what exactly do you
Okay, cool.
what exactly do you mean when you say anchor?
Okay, so the anchor text is the text of the link. So if I say click here to visit so and so, then the anchor text is click here to visit so and so.
Okay. So what are things you want to keep in mind when talking about anchors?
Okay, so the first one is a ranking factor. Okay, so the text of the actual anchor text itself, the text around the anchor text itself, is gonna help with how influential that link is gonna be. Okay, so one of the biggest mistakes SEOs make, and this used to be fair game a few years ago, but what they do is they would go out there and build all the links with every single one of them would have the keyword in the anchor text. Okay, so if you want to rank for, I don't know, buy cups online, I have a cup in front of me, so buy cups online, and you're going out there and building your links. What a lot of people do is they put the anchor text buy cups online over and over and over again, and that's called an exact match anchor text. And in the olden days, like maybe you can get away with like 100%, and when I got started with SEO, you can get away with up to like 20%, to be honest. If you were safer, you did like 5 to 10%, and that was fine. These days, like you don't want to do nowhere close to that. Okay, so the general sort of rule to do it correctly is kind of look at your maybe top 5 competitors, the sites that are actually ranking really well, and throw them into a tool like Ahrefs again. I mentioned them again. They owe me, and look at the anchor text ratio, and that's going to show you the actually that kind of works too, but you want to actually look at the anchor text they have and kind of break it down into ratios. So you have different types. So you could have like target anchor text, right? And target anchor text would be anything that has the keyword or even any part of the keyword in it. So if you're ranking for plumbers in London, then if it has anything to do with those words in it, then it's target anchor text, okay? And you have also like branded, so if it's got a brand name, so the anchor text was Empire Flippers, then it's a branded anchor text. And basically just look at what ratios the top competitors have and go as close to that as possible. And that's really going to help you out because that's already working. Because like people used to give like they say, okay, like have 1% or 2% exact match and or target and this percent miscellaneous and whatnot. The problem with that is it's different for every single keyword. So just because that works extremely well for one guy that's doing some local stuff in this city, someone else doing something completely different, it might not work at all. It might be very, very bad advice. And some niches also allow you to be, some keywords allow you to be a bit more aggressive than others and things like that. So there's no real like, do it exactly this way. It's more so look at what's already working and then kind of copy paste
Mm-hmm.
on that.
And
What was the question again? I forgot already.
so the question was, what are some things to keep in mind with anchors?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely answered the question. Um,
Okay.
so then the last thing we want to touch on here is you don't want to ever repeat your anchors.
Okay. Yeah. So two more things
Two
actually.
more
So
things.
firstly, with you doing the anchors, another tip would be to write them kind of naturally. So basically, as an example, another mistake people make is they're trying to rank for the term like plumbers London. They use that example a lot. And so in the anchor text, they're thinking, okay, this is a target anchor text now. I want to get my target anchor text in. So I'm going to write exactly as is, plumbers London. And the problem is it's very, very unnatural because this link is going to be within the content. Okay, so you're going to link up from within a blog post or something like that on your PBN site. So if you create a blog post, how on earth do you fit plumbers London exactly as is with nothing in between it into an article? There's no sentence you can make that makes that sound okay, aside from just very obvious SEO strategies that you're very obviously trying to force it in there. So it's totally fine to have, say, plumbers in London and actually include the word in and mix it up like that. It doesn't have to be exactly that. So just make sure you're writing it in like a natural way. So that's the first one I want to mention because it's just like a very obvious giveaway that you're an SEO if you're going out there and building them with very um, SEO-y, is that SEO-y ways, okay? Yeah, then number two, you said never repeat anchor text, okay? So that's another general rule. So don't repeat the anchor text you're using. And the reason being this is just much more natural. And you're gonna anyone that talks about PBNs or SEO, and at least grey hat, black hat SEO, is gonna talk about like the word like natural. And essentially, what we're talking about is look at a real business, look at a real website, and have a look at the links they have. And really, what you're trying to do is just replicate it as best possible. So what's going to happen in most cases is that when you link to, aside from the brand name, so the brand name is fine. So everyone's going to link with the same brand name because it doesn't change. And maybe there'll be slight variations. So for like my example, like Lion Zeal, some people will link Lion Zeal with a space, some people will link without a space, some people will capitalize the L and the Z, some people won't. It doesn't really matter, right? So that's going to be slight variations there. So you can absolutely do that with the brand name. But it's very unnatural, it's very uncommon if every single time someone linked to you, they had, um, I don't know, dentist London, and every single time the exact link was dentist in London, dentist in London, dentist in London. Now I already mentioned before, like you don't want to do that anyway because you want to copy the anchor text ratios that your competitors are doing. But if it's exactly the same every time, it's very, very uncommon. It doesn't normally happen. You ever look at most websites, they don't have the exact same anchor text every time. Sometimes it was like click here to see this. Other times it would be check out my dentist or whatever. I'm making that up, but the idea is that every time, if you naturally acquired a link, and that's what essentially what we're going for, we want it to look like you just set up this website, then magically people found it, then magically they started sharing it on social media, then magically they started linking to it, which can happen, but the reason we use PBNs is because we actually have control over this stuff, right? We have control over the anchor text, we have control over the speed that the links go live, we have control over which pages link to it, and we have all this control of every single element, which is the biggest reason you want to use PBNs. And damn it, I went into a tangent now. I forgot what I was talking about. But essentially, yeah. Okay, so that's what. Okay, got it. Sorry. So, we're doing this because we want it to look like a real site, like a real link that we've naturally acquired. So make sure that if you have to look at a real site, essentially, then real links is never going to be the same every single time. So that's that's the short of what I was saying. Just don't repeat it because it's not a
Mm-hmm.
natural occurrence.
And we're running out of time here, actually, which is good. Like, this has been fantastic. And I know there's already a bunch of questions coming in. And anyone,
Awesome.
if you have any more questions, I'm okay going a little over today if we want to, try to hit some more questions. But before we get to our Q&A portion of our show today, there's something I want to do is bring up a listing here, ask you what you would do if you were to buy it, and then cater the conversation towards PBNs. You and I kind of spoke about this before we went live here, but it'll be interesting to see how you spin this. So if you go to empireflippers.com/listing/44601, you'll find the site. It's an affiliate and AdSense business, definitely on the rise in the shopping niche. There are the numbers up on the screen, but basically, it's making more than $6,000 in profit, which is built on that average there. And the site's on the rise. The site is ranking, but there's a reason why I chose this site, Daryl, and and this also covers a question we had in chat already. Who is this by? I want to call them out for their question. Goat Guns, we are answering your question now. So, Daryl, if you were to buy this site that is already ranking well and making money, would you come in and add PBNs to it?
Okay, so obviously I'm like a big PBN guy, and I'm known for that, and I promote them heavily because they work and they're really effective for doing so. But the answer is no. Like if I bought a site that was already doing pretty good and already ranking pretty well, I'm not gonna go in and add PBNs later. I don't think that's a good strategy. The benefit of PBNs, as I was kind of touching on earlier, is the control. So if I start a brand new site today, I know that I can build exactly how many links I want. So if I want to build 3 links a week for 6 weeks, then tune that down to 1 link a week, then scale that up to 10 links a week, whatever it is I want, I can do that. If I want certain anchor text to go live in a certain order, I can control that. If I want links from certain topics or to certain pages, I have full control over every single element of that, which is perfect for starting up and ranking a site. But if the site's already ranking pretty good, I'm not gonna I don't need that control anymore. It's already doing pretty good. It's already got that starting base to it, and already got some traffic going to it. And depending on its rankings, I don't know what they are, but if it's already ranking pretty good, then you can probably get away with just doing stuff like on-page SEO and really optimizing it and improving it and different things like that. And maybe you can do some extra links, but you don't need to I never been with PBN domain. Money sites with PBN links are valued less, right? So if I was potentially planning on reflipping that site again in the future, then it makes no sense to add PBN links. As soon as I've done that, the value of the site is dropped.
And that's because the potential risk is increased.
Yeah.
And that's something we haven't really touched on, and perhaps we have you on again sometime to on the flip side hear some of the risks and things to really watch out for. But I mean, it's definitely a risky thing, but as we've discussed today, it can be beneficial and it can go well for you. So moving along here with our Q&A, Subash over here on Facebook, do you think interlinking all these sites on the PBN will raise a flag to Google?
Yeah. So interlinking the different PBN sites, yes, a huge no-no, don't do that. Because the idea is you want them to look like individually owned websites that have nothing to do with each other. So as soon as you interlink them, then it becomes very obvious there's some sort of relationship between them.
Okay. Let's see. So Victor asks, do you, Daryl, avoid, since you are breaking the Google terms of service, do you avoid all Google products like analytics, GTM, etc.?
Yeah.
Do? Okay.
Yeah, any site that we're using with PBNs, yeah.
And just to kind of expand upon that question there, obviously with most things in life, you live and learn, right? So have you ever not avoided the Google product, the Google Analytics, and then got burned by that?
I have some older sites that are still on Google Analytics and different accounts are separate from each other still. But no, never really had any issues with it. A lot of people are very paranoid about this stuff. They don't have Google fonts on your PBN sites and I don't use Gmail and reference your PBN sites, anything like that. We avoid most of this stuff anyway, but no, I've never really had any issues with it. It's just when you're in the PBN game, it helps to have a little bit of paranoia just to be extra careful. So that's a good thing, but like I never really had any issues with it.
Let's see. Mizanal. Sorry if I got your name wrong. Please correct me if I did butcher your name. I would love to get it correctly. But Mizanal asks, do you use the same CMS for all sites?
Yeah, we're using WordPress pretty much across the board. We should maybe mix it up a little bit, but so many websites these days are using WordPress, especially like new websites that are popping up. Almost every site is WordPress. I don't say all of them, but a lot of sites are WordPress. So I don't think it's that big of an
Mm-hmm.
issue.
And then Mizanal also asks, do you create new backlinks for PBNs?
No. So I mentioned previously that the quality of the PBN is essentially down to the domains that it has to it, the links that it has to it. Um, so we're buying them for we're buying the domains for the links that they have. So we're not going to put like extra effort into like we do some stuff, I guess. So we mentioned before you can use like Q&A sites and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that to get extra traffic. So it's kind of links, but it's not really that effective. But no, we're not actually going out there and doing, I don't know, guest posts or anything like that for our PBN sites. Because if we were to do that, we may as well just point it directly at our money
Mm-hmm.
site.
And let's see. So, Superfly dude, are there any tools that you use to help with PBN testing?
No. um, no, just tracking the rankings. So you can use something like Pro Rank Tracker and just point in a link and then watching it over a few weeks. I think there's some tools out there that are supposed to help you do it, but no, we're not really. We're just pretty manual approach. Just put up a link and track it and see what
Mm-hmm.
happens.
So let's see. We've got Superfly again asking, how long do you wait before linking out from a new PBN?
So it depends on well, firstly, like it takes a while sometimes to set up the site, so that's already going to slow you down, especially when you're doing it at a bit more scale. It takes time to build up all the sites, to get all the content on it, and to get some traffic on it and stuff like that. So that's already going to take time anyway. So in most cases, by the time you've already done that, it's going to be fine. But generally speaking, um, for like an auction domain, we're going to wait like at least a week. And for if you, we don't really use scrape domains and stuff anymore, expired domains. But when we were doing that more, then it was like at least like 30 days, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
longer. But yeah, over a month.
So this kind of goes along with the next question from Tane, but awesome
Okay.
details, Daryl. So what rules of thumb do you use for how fast you link your PBNs to your money sites?
That's gonna okay. It's a good question actually. It's gonna vary dependent on different things. But the easy way of putting it is we like to have a what's the word? Um, regular cadence. I don't know what the word is. Oh, but it wants to be consistent. That's the word. Okay, consistent. That's an easy way of putting it. It has to be some level of consistency to it. Okay, so we're not going to build say 10 links this week and then just stop building them. All right, we're done. Right. So if our goal is to build like 10 links, then we're going to kind of plan out how we can slowly drip those links out. We're probably going to build more than 10 in most cases. But whatever, like it can be like 3 to 5 if you're going like really crazy. You're going like a bit more of a competitive site, but we're doing a lot of like, local stuff. So I mean, you build like 1 or 2 links in a week, and that's going to start moving the needle pretty quickly. And we have like a approach to doing it. So we go out there and generate traffic, and then we'll get some social signals on it, and then we'll go out there and build the links, and we kind of follow that sort of order, and we can kind of mix up the volumes we're doing, but keep it basic. Just consistently, really. So don't build like 5 links 1 week and then one the next. You can build up the speed, you can slow it down again, but just somewhat consistent. It should seem kind of like a natural occurrence that people are visiting your site and then they're like, oh, this is really cool. Then they link it to it and they're sharing on social media. That's kind of the pattern you're going for. So it doesn't really make sense if 1 week you have I mean, technically your site could go viral once, but it doesn't really make sense if you're doing like 15 links this week, none the next 3 weeks, and then another 10, and then none, and then 5. Like, just have some sort of
Mm-hmm.
consistency to it.
Let's see. Again, I'm sorry if I get your name wrong, but Adini, is it safe to buy PBN links from, say, SEO gurus from Black Hat World and direct it to my site?
It depends on the person selling the link. So I'm gonna be heavily biased here also because we do sell PBN links. Um, so I can't really say like oh never buy from anyone ever. It's a terrible idea. But it depends on how well they set up the network. The thing to understand as well is that what we were talking about on this call today is PBNs, private block networks. When someone sells links on it, it is inherently not a private block network because public, right? So it's a public block network, and that's okay if they do a very good job of setting up their network and they're extra careful on eliminating footprints. They're extra careful on not linking to too many of the same sites across like a big network or anything like that. But you're trusting someone else to do all the stuff and eliminate all the footprints and everything like that that we mentioned today, which is fine. Just vet them and make sure they're doing a good job.
Let's see. Tane again. Any opinion on Easy Blog Network or PBN hosting recommendations?
I recommend what's Kevin's Block by Hosting. They do what I mentioned before. They go to all the shared hosting companies and they buy up reseller accounts and all of them. Then they stick you on the same shared hosting account as if you went directly to those companies, except you pay far less money because they're using reseller plans. Yeah.
And we are going to have to do a cutoff here shortly. But if you do have any questions and we don't get to it, we will, be hanging out in the YouTube chat or Facebook if there are any questions there. We'll be hanging out there for a little bit after the show and replying to any questions right away. And then on the YouTube video in the future, if there are any questions or comments or anything, we will reply to them. So definitely keep the questions coming. If we don't get to them now, we'll get to them later. But let's see. Let's do a few more now. So Jim, how many outbound links do you send from each PBN to your money site?
Usually just one.
So one link per site to your main site.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Mr. Epic, do you index all of your PBN images?
The images?
Yeah, all your PBN images.
I don't know. It's not a very deliberate strategy. We just, I presume they're indexed, but we don't really check, to be honest.
Okay.
No,
no, if you don't, you don't, and then that's.
It's not like a deliberate thing anyway. So I'm presuming like if it's on the page, then there's no reason for it not to be indexed. But no, it's not a deliberate thing we're doing.
Just a couple more here. Let's see. Syncology Marketing asks, what are you using? What tool, if any, are you using for link building?
Not really using tools. In my opinion, like a PBN is a tool. But no, we're using like PBNs and manually creating social signals, and then ordering manually creating social profiles, and then ordering like social signals or anything like that. So not really using tools anymore.
Let's see. How much money, from Laura. Laura asked, how much money do I need to create 10 good PBN sites?
It's gonna vary, of course, on how good the quality is, but as like a benchmark, you can start off at maybe you're getting like backorder domains, so maybe you're spending like $50 give or take per domain, so that's gonna be $500 there. And then the content, if you're doing it yourself, then obviously that's cheaper, but you generally don't want to do it yourself. So maybe you're gonna spend, I don't know, $30 to $50 extra per site there. So you just said like $80 per site, so it's like, you say 10, so it's $800 give or take. Plus you need hosting as well. But if you get cheap-ish hosting, $10, 10 sites is not gonna be that much. I don't know exactly how much it'll be, maybe $2 to $3 per site per month.
And then one final question, and again, we will get to all of the others that you guys may have in the chat. We will be manning that and answering any questions. But we are going to have to be getting rolling here in just a little bit here. But Mr. Epic, if you have a PBN that has been live for 3 years and it doesn't get any traffic at all, do you remove them from your network?
So if you set them up years ago, I have a lot of PBNs like this as well. What you want to do is I mentioned testing earlier. I test them to make sure that they're actually good sites. like years back, the practice wasn't to test them, it was just to throw them up and build some links, and that was great, and it worked. Um, but you don't really know which ones were potentially toxic or which ones just didn't have that much value to them. So go back and test them all and figure out if they're actually got some value to them, if they're actually useful. And if any of them come back as really, really toxic, just shut them down and get rid of them. But if they're good, then it may make more sense just to kind of put a little more effort into jigging them up a little bit and fixing them up, and maybe get a little bit of traffic on them and add some better content, stuff like that. But actually put some effort into it and make it more fresh. But test them first. That's the essential step.
And guys, that is gonna have to wrap it up here for us today. Again, please keep coming at us with questions. We do want to get to them all. We just we have to be rolling off of here. But thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We will do more PBN discussions in the future. So if you like this kind of content, then hit subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, and subscribe to our email list here at Empire Flippers. We really want to provide content for all of you that can help you buy, sell, and run your online businesses. So come back each week for more awesome business tips, and you can feel free to hit me up at jake@empireflippers.com if you have any comments, or you want to maybe see if we can talk about a specific topic or something like that. We definitely want to create a show here that is for all of you. Before we go, though, I want to give Daryl a chance to kind of plug himself a little more. Daryl, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and what you've got going on?
Sure, man. Firstly, I was surprised being like over an hour. That went really quick. It was,
I know, it's super fun,
really,
isn't
really
it?
cool. Yeah, that was cool, man. So I hope everyone got some value out of it. And I don't know if it went too technical or basic at some points, but we went into a lot, so hopefully some people got some stuff out of that. But yeah, in terms of finding out more about me, you can visit my site. It's lionzeal.com. So lion as in a lion, and zeal as in Zeal.
And we'll go ahead and throw that in the description as well.
Perfect. And on there, you'll get my blog. I have a humongous PBN guide on there, so how to set up and manage PBNs. It's like 9,000 words or something insane like that. And you also get like tons of free training on there as well. And also, if you at the top, it will say like services and all that. If you have a look there, we got our PBN link service. So if you don't want to do all this stuff yourself and test them and manage them and limit footprints and stuff like that, then we can also basically just rent links on our network, and we do it for you. So of course there's risks with that as well, but you're trusting me, and hopefully I seem to be a trustworthy enough guy to do that.
Well, you certainly know a lot about this, and I'm if you're willing, we'll have to have you back on here again sometime. Daryl, thank you so much for taking the time.
Awesome,
like you said, I mean, the hour just kind of flies by. It's super fun to be on here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolute best. Yeah, man, thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Guys, thank you all so much for hanging out with us and watching the show today. Again, subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, and our email list if you want more content like this. We really want to design this kind of content to be helpful for you all. And Daryl, thank you again one more time for being on with us today.
You're welcome. Thanks
Everyone,
for having me.
have a fantastic day.